Hey there, you guys. So in this video, I want to review Silent Hill F. I just beat the game. It took me roughly 11 hours to complete this game. I wanted to make sure that I don't include too much stuff that might be spoilery. So there's going to be videos, clips, etc. from the game to showcase a lot of the gameplay, environments, etc. So just heads up, if you're someone who wants to leave as much of it as mystery as possible, watch this video with audio versus the video. Um, a couple stuff about Silent Hill, just kind of going through my history with the franchise. I've personally never played a Silent Hill game before. This is the first one that I've played and completed. But that being said, growing up, I sat down and watched, my brothers play Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill 3, and I liked the atmosphere of Silent Hill. I liked the story of it. The gameplay never seemed something like I wanted to do myself personally. So after I'd watched them complete the games, I just never felt the need to, you know, play them. The gameplay of Silent Hill is nothing that really ever like excited me. I'm not really a survival horror fan. With that being said, when Silent Hill F was announced, I knew I wanted to experience it in some type of way, and I guess I could like message one of my brothers and tell them to play the game and let me just watch again. But schedules, etc., doesn't really work that way. So I wanted to make sure that in order to experience it, I at least played this game. Uh, and I don't know exactly what I expected from this game. I had watched some reviews before just to make sure it was a good game. A lot of people clearly said it was a good game, but there was definitely a lot of stuff that I just was going in blind to. I didn't really know the true story of what was going to happen. I understand like what Silent Hill typically is about. If you guys aren't familiar, Silent Hill is a psychological survival horror game where like anything is possible. A lot of weird stuff happens. It dives deep into the psyche of whoever the main character is, and dives deep into like morality and stuff like that. So I understood that I was gonna be one of those, but I didn't really understand too much more beyond that. I know that this was gonna be the first one set in Japan. It's gonna be very different from what Silent Hill has been in the past, which I think is a cool idea. I love that Konami is finally taking risks. I love that they're finally making games again. I like that Konami isn't just because they hold a lot of really popular IP, and for a while they just weren't using it for anything. So it's cool to see that they're finally taking their IP out of their shelves, out of the closet, and making games again. And this being a different take on Silent Hill, I think is really really cool. So again, I won't have really any spoilery stuff in the video review or the review or anything like that. A lot of it's gonna be early gameplay from like the first chapter, maybe second chapter, a little bit of stuff. But just stuff that's gonna help me kind of, I guess, showcase to you guys what the game is. So Silent Hill F, it's a game place that takes place in Japan. It's a fictional place. It's a fictional village in Japan. Your main character is Hinako. She's a schoolgirl. Her and her friends, do schoolgirl stuff. Like there's the one boy Shu and then her two other friends and her. That's like the circle that you know of. It's hinted at pretty early on that there's a lot of stuff going on in her home, her personal home with her father and her mother, etc. They like reference a lot of like some of her family members, but you don't get to see a lot of them often. So a lot of it is just kind of like setting up some type of backstory of where she comes from, her people, etc. And off rip, you just know that there's something really like 2 seconds into the game, the town feels empty. It feels cold. It doesn't feel like a lived-in village. Like there's people, or this town is populated. Um, so you meet up with your friends by a grocery store to kind of hang out. Do you have like a regular conversation? And then that's when everything kind of descends into madness very, very quickly. And that's one of the things that I think I really, really, really appreciate about this game is that they throw you in there so fast. There's not a whole lot of build up. I think by the first 30 minutes, I'm already, in combat. I'm already experienced a lot of, jump scares, a lot of enemies that are generally pretty scary. I think Silent Hill is one of those games that has always been very, very terrifying. And Silent Hill F, I would say at first definitely very scary. Like there was when I first played the game, like I'm pretty. I don't wouldn't say that like I handle the horror genre well. I'm very easily frightened. So when I was playing this game, the first I want to say 3 hours of the game, it was super late. I was alone in the house, etc., and it was scary. This is a game that I recommend that if you're playing this game, put on the headset if you want the full experience. Like really, really get immersed into this and like dive deep. The sound direction is amazing. The art direction is insane. I think that what they do with the village, as far as like the fog and the simplicity of a lot of stuff, is really, really cool. There's a lot of I want to say a lot of callbacks to earlier Silent Hill things. Nothing that like is like direct reference, just kind of like Easter eggs and stuff like that that I think are really cool to see. So a lot of that stuff I think nailed in this game. I think the essence of what Silent Hill is, where you're kind of just lost in this mysterious town. And the thing that's always weird to me is that whenever there's like a premise to Silent Hill, there's always this kind of like, I wouldn't do that, so why are they doing this, right? So like clearly Hinako's running around and like sees crazy things, and her reactions aren't what you kind of expect from a main character in a regular world, which immediately sets things off as like, okay, this is not a regular town. This is not a regular situation. Like you're immediately on your back step about what is real, about what is truly going on, what are people's true intentions, you know, stuff like that. That definitely makes you not know who to trust. Um, it's hard to see Hinako go down certain paths sometimes because you, as the audience, are like screaming at her, like, please don't do this. Or stuff like that that makes you question your main character, makes you question your friends, everything around you. Some of the notes that are being left behind are, disturbing. It definitely has this chilling feeling going on pretty much throughout the game. A couple of like immediate things that I want to say is the way they laid out the world, like as far as like the path that you take, etc. I love how clearly it's labeled and like laid out without really telling you too much. It just kind of like makes sense the way everything is laid out. So even if I was like lost at times, I never felt truly lost. I felt like okay, like this is clearly where I'm going. None of the puzzles were ever too hard where it like stopped me from progressing the story. To be clear, I played it on the hard difficulty for both puzzles and action. The world building really, really, really led to, I think, adding to the fear of what this game is doing. If I'm walking down a corridor and I hear like noises from down that hallway, and I know I have to go down that hallway, it's one of those type of things that makes it a lot more terrifying. Because you got to do it. You got to go down that path. There's no turning back around. So that stuff, from a gameplay standpoint, I think it's what makes survival horrors one of the maybe hardest genres to get into, but also one of the funnest. It's not often that a lot of things are that type of scary. Like if you watch a movie, none of it's happening to you, but when you're playing a game, this stuff is happening to you, and you kind of allow this. You move forward through this, and you have to journey through this, and that's what makes games like this pretty scary. I think something that makes Silent Hill very unique is how unreal everything feels. Like Resident Evil feels unreal, but in like a that could never happen because that's just unreal. Silent Hill feels unreal as like, oh my God, none of this stuff is possible, but it just feels like it's happening to somebody, like in some type of weird way. And it's hard to explain to me. For me, it's like especially once you like let go of like reality and you kind of just start accepting these things that are happening to the characters, it's pretty insane. Um, as far as Silent Hill F2, something that I think for me makes the game more palatable for someone who's not into the survival horror genre is the combat system. I think the combat system's actually pretty simple. You have a heavy attack and you have a light attack. Uh, the enemy will do like some type of twitch when you can parry them, so you hit them with a heavy, and then they kind of get into a stun animation, and you can wail on them. There's a stamina there's a stamina bar that you have to kind of monitor. I never felt like I was too challenged. Maybe a couple boss fights challenged me a little bit, but nothing too crazy. You can pretty much run away from just about anything, so like I think that also helps. At a certain point, I think I want to say around the 3 to 4 hour mark, I wasn't really scared of the game anymore, which kind of allowed me to take it as a game, like just a regular game. So if I would like enter like a corridor or something like that, or an area, and there was a bunch of enemies, I would typically run around for a while until I could figure out what to do, and then eventually the enemies annoyed me enough where I just would have to kill them so that they wouldn't bother me while I look for the puzzle. So I think that's one of the type of like feedback I'll give to you if you're playing the game, especially if you're doing like the hard modes, etc. Just kill the enemies, right? Take them out. That way you can solve the puzzles because oftentimes they just kind of get in the way. There is weapon degradation, but there's enough like resources to keep your weapons around, and there was enough weapons laying around where I never felt like I had nothing, if that makes sense. So if you're scared of like resource management, the game gives you plenty of resources. Like there'd be often times where I feel like I had too much resources, too much weapons, and I never really felt at risk of losing my weapons. So I think that's another feedback that I'd probably have to the game is that maybe they could have, you know, restricted the resources a little bit more. And I guess I could have like just chose not to pick them up, but I think a lot of my time was spent at a certain point of just how can I grab all these items and resources and use them effectively throughout this playthrough. And I don't know why I kind of treated them more like as collectibles than I treated them as like actual, you know, items and resources. A lot of the resources I just use as offerings. And that's I think where a lot of the fun starts to become towards the middle of the game is how do I start to kind of make a build. There's like a little slight RPG element of like you can offer up resources for exchange for what are like Oromaru. I can't pronounce it, but it's like an upgrade, like a trait, that you can attach to your character where it'll give you like, hey, reduce enemy line of sight or add extra health when you do a certain attack, etc. Or you can pray and use the offerings to give yourself an extra stat boost, so extra health, extra stamina, stuff like that. So stuff like that is kind of where throughout the middle of the game is kind of where a lot of my fun became now of like how do I collect these resources and offer them up and kind of buff out my character more. So I want to say towards the late game I wasn't scared anymore. Every combat felt simple and easy, and I kind of just felt like I was wailing on everything without any type of repercussion or any type of hesitance. So I think that that is a hard part in survival horror games, I think, where once the fear runs off, what then? And I think at least for Silent Hill F, after the fear runs off, there's still a good game here. There's still a good, fun, engaging game, a story that I want to finish through because like the story is very compelling. The imagery, I think, for me, is so hard to watch sometimes. So like, I guess like if you're kind of squirmish, just kind of be prepared for some of the rough imagery that you're going to be seeing. It definitely gets very graphic. Obviously, you know, it's a Silent Hill game, so like they get graphic, but this one just felt for me personally, I don't know, maybe because I'm the one actually playing it this time, it felt so intense, and there was times where I just couldn't look at the TV screen anymore. I had to like look away for 2 seconds. Um, Again, I'm very squirmish and stuff like that makes me my skin crawl. But yeah, overall, Silent Hill F, man, like it's a really cool game. It's different enough to make it stand out in not just a Silent Hill franchise, but like survival horror. I think there's definitely not a lot of games that you know make you feel like you have to take pick up anything and take everything and take swings at enemies that are weirdly demonic. There's stuff like that that I think you know like Resident Evil, you get guns. In games like Evil Within, you're hiding. Like there's not a lot of like just kind of picking up stuff and swinging on enemies. It reminded me a lot of Condemned. Like if you've ever played Condemned, it's an old game back on like 360, and it was really cool because you would just beat up weird demons and stuff with lead pipes, and I think that's a lot of what Silent Hill was, at least F. I feel like the combat system is gonna be something different for a lot of Silent Hill fans that maybe they might not like. Because I mean, there was definitely points where I felt like I was playing something more like Bloodborne. Like it's not that this is like Souls like in any type of way, but there were moments where I didn't really feel scared anymore. I kind of just felt like I was having fun fighting, and I think that's something that for me it's a kudos. For me, it's a plus. But if you're not really into like the whole melee of games and stuff like that, then maybe that's something that you don't like. Maybe if you're a fan of Silent Hill for the survival horror aspects of it more so than combat or anything like that, then I can definitely see how that might be annoying. But overall, for me, it was a really good game. Definitely recommend it. Pretty much anybody, unless you're like overly scared. But even then, play with a friend or something like that, and you'll get through. Um, I think that's all I got. Let me know down below you guys' thoughts down below if you guys are playing the game, if you guys are curious about the game, what you guys' thoughts are, and with that, I'll see you guys in the next video.